Hello and welcome to today's WTA webinar, Cyber Threats in Your Own Backyard. My name is Randall Barney. I'm Executive Director for the World Teleport Association. And what we do every day is advocate for the interests of teleport operators as well as promoting excellence in their operations, their technology, and their business practices. Our webinar today is based on a report that is available on our website of the same title, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. WTA's research reports are guided by WTA's Technology Advisory Board. The advisory board was formed to address the rising challenges and opportunities that our leading members feel are really changing the nature of the game. Our Technology Advisory Board members are Comtech, Hughes, Kratos, Network Innovations, Advanced Networks, and Nexat. Membership of the advisory board is open to industry patron and industry leader members. If you want more information on this, please send me an email, rbarney@worldteleport.org. After this introduction, we're going to cover some key insights from the published report, and then we'll launch into a discussion with today's panelists. I would also like to thank our industry leader members who make possible our research reports and webinars. They are Eutelsat Group, Intelsat, which is now part of SES, Kratos, and SES. In the age of intense competition from emergent low Earth orbit operators, mainly SpaceX's Starlink and an inexorably declining broadcast business, teleport operators are facing unprecedented business challenges, which they are addressing in part by embracing technologies that enable greater efficiency, easier scalability, and closer integration with the mainstream telecommunications grid. In doing so, however, these operators are increasing their exposure to threats of a different type. Hackers seeking to penetrate networks for reasons including theft, government and corporate espionage, and extortion. Traditional geo-satellite and teleport operators have long touted security as a feature of their relatively closed-loop networks. But the emerging reality is they are becoming just as vulnerable as ground-based networks, according to industry representatives. There is still a misconception that satellite Earth stations are less exposed and therefore less vulnerable. One industry executive said, "We are now a data center and have to be aware that we're as vulnerable as any terrestrial network out there." So some of the key takeaways from the report, as you can see on the screen, the threat surface for teleports is growing. Teleports are now fully connected to broader telecom networks, requiring modern IT-grade defenses and industry cybersecurity standards. One of the biggest vulnerabilities comes from within. Human error remains a major risk, making continuous workforce training essential to defend against social engineering and unsafe device use. Cybersecurity is not free. Strong cyber protection demands ongoing investment in technology, training, compliance, and outside expertise. Costs not all customers welcome. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. Operators and customers must jointly defend interconnected systems, with many relying on secured cloud platforms to meet demanding requirements. And finally, automation and AI are fueling the cyber arms race. AI and machine learning empower both attackers and defenders, driving more advanced threats, more adaptive, real-time defense tools. I would like to welcome today's panelists. They are Chris Filletra, President and CEO of ComSat, Frank Chulo, President of Network Innovations, Advanced Networks, Fulvio Sansone, Founding Partner and CTO of Nexat, and Yassine Bihi, Teleport Director of SailSat. Welcome, guys. Starting with the new cyber threat landscape, how has the attack surface for teleports expanded as the industry integrates more deeply with terrestrial telecom and IC systems? And Chris, why don't we start with you?
So really the attack surface for the teleports, it's grown significantly. We have this convergence of sort of the digital services and that network integration. I mean, in the past, teleports operated relatively isolated systems. So you had this proprietary hardware, limited external connectivity. Today, that is not the case with virtualization, cloud, and any other type of integration into the terrestrial networks. We've certainly expanded the vulnerabilities.
Okay, great. Yassine, you want to add to that?
Yes, I totally agree with Chris. So the landscape now it's growing exponentially. Especially the teleport was isolated RF environment, but now it's deeply integrated with IP terrestrial network, cloud platforms, and customer-facing services like VSAT connectivity and content delivery. So every new integration point, whether for remote management, OTT delivery, or VSAT services, it's create a potential entry path for attackers that it was not there before.
Okay, Fulvio is a platform provider.
I totally in agreement. The attack surface has expanded primarily because the modern satellite platforms, like our platform, are no longer isolated networks. Of course, to what the colleagues already stated, I would also add one element which is very important for us is the API-based partner integrations. So this is a point of contact for automation and orchestration with other networks, which is very important. And so the threat surface has expanded now, including exposed API, authorization and authentication layers, billing data, vouchers, provisioning interfaces. And this, of course, requires countermeasures that we will then, I guess, discuss about in the following minutes.
Okay.
I think one of the other things too to be aware of is, the teleports still operate a number of legacy systems, which, at a time were, air gapped from the rest of the world. And, they're now connected to the internet, and they're not built for the type of security that you have in some of the newer equipment that's out there. Legacy
Absolutely.
definitely is a vulnerable spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Frank, do you want to add to that and maybe talk about some of the lessons learned from recent incidents?
Sure. I think I'm not meant to always be contrarian, but I'm going to put a thought out there. The attack surface has always been there. I think the fact of the vulnerability is the question. So the systems as Chris highlighted, have been often air gapped, and so the surface has been there, but now we've increased the vulnerability by connecting those to features. And the report highlighted or touched on the Salt Typhoon aspect of things, and really showing the vulnerability in large telcos and things that everybody would assume is protected, and everybody would made the assumption is there. I think the same scenario has been with teleports, and we do not know that JavaScript kernels in legacy equipment is not already compromised. So I mean, there's really a bent from my side that says, we can face this as if it's new, but it's actually been a long-standing issue. It's just now a question of the vulnerabilities coming out. So lessons learned show us that you don't have to be subject to ransomware to have been attacked. Often cases, the attack is a covert action, and when you start talking about nation states, corporate espionage is easily accomplished by cybersecurity, and that's teleports guard some of our most important and critical infrastructure, so they're definitely targeted.
Okay, great. Chris and Frank, you both kind of touched on this with the legacy equipment. Which parts of teleport ground network ecosystem are proving most difficult to secure. Chris, do you want to continue on that?
Yeah. I think in today's day, you are not operating all of your own equipment. So you don't necessarily have the ability and access to the third party customer base hub infrastructure that's on your site and connecting through your direct internet access, your touch points to the terrestrial, to the cloud virtualization. And so I find that if somebody is operating a network out of our facilities, but we don't have control over it, there are vulnerabilities that they're opening up into the teleport, and we have to work on that process.
Okay, great. Yassine, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. The ground network components, especially VSATs, hubs, and third-party vendor interfaces, are the toughest ones. And in addition to the legacy systems that are, there has been there for a long time, and those systems are not built into the modern technology that are kept up to date all the time. So those are set and forget devices. Before, as the teleport was air gapped, so most of the services come in either to receive from satellite feeds and retransmit. So there is no exchange between outside worlds. So it was a self-contained environment. Now, as Flavio was mentioning, so the API interfaces, so it's opening holes on the teleports for exchanging critical informations, but also exposing the teleports to vulnerabilities that can be exploited by the attackers. Okay. And many of the old systems runs on proprietary protocols and outdated firmwares, which is making patching and hardening very complex without disturbing customer services.
And Flavio, excuse me, Flavio.
Yeah, I'm in line with the previous answers. From our point of view, of course, legacy hardware, customer premise equipment, also because those are elements on which we don't have the full operational control. But of course, the part which is absolutely under our control, and it's the object of a lot of attention from our side, is the API, which is a key component of our system in order to interface with the teleport and with the other components in the overall SATCOM value chain. API which are today used for provisioning, for billing, for monitoring. All the points where you have integration with external partner, especially for automation, is a potential point of intrusion, let's say, into the network.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the things that also makes it vulnerable is the fact that a number of teleports or stations these days are not manned 24/7, 365. So there is a requirement for remote access into these legacy systems. We have the advantage. We're luckily manned 24/7, 365, and do our best to keep any of that, the legacy and our infrastructure operations air gapped. But if you have a Earth station that isn't, a teleport that has somebody who has to check in periodically, and you're opening up that door, somebody else is going to look at that vulnerability as well.
Okay, we have a couple of questions about virtualization, but Frank, I wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to add to that or.
Yeah, I mean the remote access is a fact of life. It's not just whether people are remote working, but it's the connectivity of pure networks into it, where customers such as myself, we require more than just data transfer. Maybe we need to have some antenna management. Maybe we have to have some things. the the number one thing in security is segmentation and teleports in general because of the infrastructure type network tend to have a a zone that is accessible across the board, whether that be for MNC or whether it be for network interconnection or what have you. And I think the higher level concepts of zero trust, which you've touched on, are becoming are becoming table stakes. The idea of segmentating uh, a teleport, and as everybody here mentioned, we're all veterans of this industry. We kind of had the luxury of it being air gapped before. Now we have to create segmentation in different ways than the air gap.
Okay, so an audience question here. With the virtualization of traditionally racked equipment, software-defined radios and API callouts for interface dynamics, what measures does a teleport take to ensure proper hygiene for the system? Whoever wants to go for that.
Frank has just touched on it. It's the zero trust. It's the only way to do it. It's just you have to follow any new device that goes on has to be vetted, and that's it. It's really it's a straightforward process, but that's what it is. If you are doing any of this, it has to be zero trust.
Yeah, and to just go on top of that, because zero trust is such a
Yeah.
ubiquitous name, specifically the idea of a permission based hierarchy overlay of something where the API comes in, it has access to what it needs to access, but not to a zoned type network architecture. So adopting very much, what critical infrastructure and our terrestrial friends are doing. It's we should be no different.
And go ahead, Fabio.
I just wanted to bounce on that. That's exactly what we are doing using so-called RBAC, which is a role-based access control. Basically, instead of granting access to a user being a human or a machine based on who is the user, you define roles in your system, you assign the users to the different roles, and in this way you have a system which is much simpler to manage and much simpler also to audit. All the security management becomes much easier. So this, together with segmentation, which was also mentioned, are probably two key practices that need to be introduced in order to improve the security of the system.
Okay, and would it be easier and cost effective to go ahead and virtualize the teleport infrastructure than shield existing infrastructure? This is a question, audience question.
Yeah, this is for pure teleport operators.
Yeah. It's a nice in idea, but cost wise, it's not practical at this point. I think you'll continue to see virtualization as you move forward into newer technologies and newer systems that come on board. But as you can see behind me, there's a significant amount of money invested in physical infrastructure that just can't be tossed away.
I totally agree with Chris. For my especially for the legacy teleports where they have already a huge install base, so that still running, it's and efficient. You cannot just throw it away and replace it with virtualization. So, but for new implementation, greenfield teleports, yes, that's the way to go forward, especially now with the radio-defined frequencies. It help on uh, putting everything in network, so you don't need any more uh, L-band routers. Everything will be virtualized and IP-based. So it add more flexibility, but managing it and also take care of all the vulnerabilities and keeping updating. It's a very demanding. Yeah, you need to be ready for that.
I'll add to that a little bit that the infrastructure is here because they are still very customized solutions. There isn't a standard for a network that's a Leo network. Starlink has theirs, OneWeb has theirs, Kuiper will have theirs. The Lightspeed will have theirs, and every one of those are different. So virtualizing one of them is fine, but virtualizing all of them is not practical at this point because they don't have the same standard.
Great. We have another audience question about the customer side. We're going to come back to customer and costs, but I want to shift to internal vulnerabilities and human factors. How much of today's risks come from unintentional insider behavior versus external attackers? And Chris, will continue with you.
Look, there mistakes happen. You have to continue to train your staff to follow the rules. And yes, there is. I wouldn't say that it's a larger portion. I would say that it's reasonably split across external and internal. But somebody plugging in a USB device that they shouldn't be plugging into something. The fact that somebody opened up bypass the IT because it's easier for them to log in this way into these devices to get something done. Those are the type of things that you have to keep your eye on. So yes, there's definitely issues internally with people who don't want to follow the rules. Some of the ways that we can help fix that is doing continuous change of password requirements, multi-factor authentication access. Those are the key things to do. Weak passwords are definitely one of the issues that we can come across as well.
Great. Yassine, you want to address that?
Yes, actually, always the human is the weakest point on this chain. So whatever system that you put in place, how efficient, how protective, but if you don't train the employees to be more vigilant and also to check and vet all the devices before use and to not fail on phishing emails. Also, the poor hygiene, credential hygienes. So
Mhm.
those all are factors that make the system, regardless of how much you spend on technology, vulnerable. So I believe, as Chris mentioned, you have to enforce this strong password policy plus having two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, plus running training sessions and also simulations for phishing campaigns, and also promoting campaigns where reporting suspicious activities are encouraged. So this is all can be managed, but it should be in a regular, trained and updated, keeping the team up to date.
Hey, Frank.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on truly what zero trust and multi-factor authentication means, because we tend to bring it down to the lowest common available aspect, which is, hey, I'm gonna use a phone to validate a second source or what have you. But the idea of truly building in a zero trust architecture for critical infrastructure is something as, a teleport operator that is off shift doesn't, their credentials aren't working because they know it's tied to the time that they're supposed to be there. There's complexities that we have the ability to do today. They're just they're they're not economically necessarily it's a trade-off. It's security is always a trade-off between money and vulnerability. And the reality is that cyber threats are not simply somebody gaining access to a system. Particularly in our world, we deal with critical infrastructure. It is the OPSEC around the system. Knowing when a transmitter is at 80% power because it's pushing a large pipe to the sky. You don't necessarily need to know what the pipe is. You just know that it happens at 3 o'clock every day, and it happens to coincide with a military exercise that's happening. In the advent of AI, all of that is able to be correlated now. So I think the human factor is always a vulnerability, but the capital factor combined with the human factor is probably the biggest one, which is people want security, but do they want to pay for it? People want the most secure house, but are you going to pay for a security guard to walk around your house 24/7? No. And this is the struggle that teleport operators do. None of these gentlemen want an insecure teleport, but they also have to balance out what you want to pay for your services. So I think the human factor across any network is the easiest one to sort of compromise, but it's also the easiest one to design around and to be able to be protected. Sometimes when a human's at work, you don't necessarily know what kernel is embedded 5 layers deep on a piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, do you want to expand on the balance of operational efficiency with strict security protocols for staff?
I think what Frank he definitely elaborated on was the fact that we go through this process, and we understand that now you do not just have a teleport staff, but you have to have someone on staff at the teleport that has the certifications in the IT world. So the technicians that you have on the facility now are not just someone who can go and point an antenna and check a spec an and set up a VSAT, but someone who can go into the firewalls and configure the various network devices, and in addition to that, distribute the multi-factor authentication capabilities and all of that. So your practices have to be around cost-effective staffing procedures and understanding which ones are the most required and where you don't need the others in the future. So I think that's the process. It's not a one size fits all based on the service that you're providing, but the ability to have capabilities across the board in an IT, networking, and RF is key.
Okay, great. Shifting back to cost, compliance, and customer expectations. Cybersecurity is expensive. What are the biggest cost drivers for teleport operators today? And Chris, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, the advanced threat protection side of it, we have to deploy these next generation firewalls, intrusion detection systems. The fact that the cost of those now are extreme, and you have to have a customer that's willing to understand that those costs are going to increase the services. You have to work towards doing compliance and meeting these various regulatory requirements, WTA certifications that we go through. Here in the U.S., certainly the NIST requirements that we have to adhere to. ISO 27001 is one that we have not worked towards, but we look at the security side of that and try to meet those requirements. But those are some of the things. Workforce training, you have to provide training to your people, and they have to understand how to do the reporting. So you have to train them. They have to be able to report it. And those processes then have to work into your system if you've had a vulnerability exposed.
Yassine, are there any other cost drivers for teleport operators?
In addition to what Chris and Frank mentioned, continuous patching, compliance, audit, um, advanced intrusion system detections, and also endpoint devices that are required for protection, and also additional investment in securing content delivery, especially for teleports that bring content and also share content to cloud providers. So I think there is two, major component, which is, patching is very critical, especially unlike the normal IT networks. So most of the systems are really fast-paced updates, and you can still keep updating without having any impact on the systems. Now, for the teleport operation, so patching, you need to validate every step, because maybe it will break your network. So, or you reach to a certain level that you have to replace that system. So that's very critical component to stay up to date and protected.
Okay, and we've mentioned NIST and ISO 27001. Frank, I don't know if you want to answer this or not. Which compliance frameworks, such as those, are providing most useful or most demanding?
Yeah, I get this question a fair bit, NIST or ISO. I I don't think there's an either or. So it's really a question of who wants to do it. There's good mapping between the two. I mean, ISO is much more a policy driven aspect. NIST is a little bit more, an action driven aspect. But the reality is their frameworks to good hygiene. They're not the be all and end all. I mean, I've seen people pass ISO 27001 and the teleport's not. I wouldn't say is what I would consider a secure aspect, because it's a policy and it depends on the evidence that comes out of it. So there's a couple of comments in the chat about integration with your customer and your third party aspect. It's 100%. I mean, the standard is there as a guidance. It's not there as a recipe of how to do it. It's a way to measure, just like any other certification. And I can't see that any serious teleport doesn't want to be compliant, but it doesn't mean that they're not secure, right? So there's practicalities that relate to teleports that are you seen hit the nail on the head with patching. Every certification talks about the idea of having up-to-date patching. Well, in a teleport, you may want to know what that patch is before you take out a 1,000-watt transmitter that's covering a core network, which means you got to validate all the way down. So it doesn't mean they're not secure. They're actually being more prudent by necessarily not patching right away. Anyways, certifications are meant to be a measurement of good. They're not meant to be a practical recipe that if you have the certification, somehow you're lily white. That's not the case. So.
All right, great. So another customer question here. Audience question. How securing customer data versus teleport infrastructure differ? Or are they one and the same? How are the satellite capacity vulnerability affects the cybersecurity for example, OneWeb and Starlink? I don't know who wants to take that.
I'll take a throw at that because it relates right to it. So the separation of the control plane and the data plane has been a standard of security for years. The difference that I think, and I'm going to bring up this concept of auditable and attributable. A lot of the teleports have the ability to provide you an audible path for your data. Ultimately the security of a customer's data is the customer's aspect of it in partnership with the teleport. The teleport's security is the operational management of its teleport in a secure way. The movement of that data is facilitated and is much easier when it's worked in partnership with the teleport. And not to to pick one or the other. But when you look at something like a Starlink, or you look at something like say Amazon Leo that's coming out, one of the big questions that has to be asked is, do you know where your data is? Do you know the path that it's traversing? Do you know the equipment that it's going through? Julio mentioned the aspect of APIs for managing data flows and things. I think the concept of auditable and attributable, meaning where is my data today, has been lost in a lot of this conversation. And I think that's really the key for customers to understand the path of where their data takes. And you'll find that teleports are still one of the most secure ways of transmitting data.
To expand on that a little bit, one of the things that we have put into process that probably didn't exist, 4 years ago, is the idea that you work in relationship with your customer and the terrestrial operators. So at any time, if there is somebody that's bringing a circuit into the facility, they have to have the proper credentials. There are processes for them to come onto the site where they access the terrestrial equipment that is coming into the facility, where they patch into our distribution point to the customer, and the fact that that person is working for a Lumen, for an AT&T. The third-party contractor situation had gotten a little bit unattainable for us, where somebody was just showing up and trying to put a circuit in and had no LOA, so they didn't have the proper documentation. They didn't have circuit identifiers or anything like that. All of that paperwork and that process has to be in place to protect that data. So by putting those, real strict access to those terrestrial networks and connecting through to the teleport systems protects you a lot more.
All right, great. How are customer requirements shaping your security strategy, especially in government and enterprise markets? And Fulvio, let's start with you.
Yeah, for us, the customer requirements, of course, are one of the main drivers for our security strategy. Recently, we have been participating to a number of governmental programs which have somehow forced us to look into a number of security solutions. And this, of course, has had an impact on our learning curve in this area for a small company like ours. So what we see is that governmental and their enterprise customers, they are looking for full auditability, data sovereignty, tamper-proof building, end-to-end encryption, so multi-factor authentication, a number of security-related features that needs to be, let's say, taken into account into the design of that we had to take into account in the design of our platform. And through the usage, as we were saying before, of segmentation, token-based authentication, multi-factor authentication, and also compatibility with the standards, the ISO and IST and so on, we can nowadays ensure that our platform is suitable for security-sensitive customers. But of course, the requirement comes basically from the field, from the customers.
Okay, Chris, do you want to add to that?
I can take from there.
Yeah.
I believe any governmental clients push for compliance with strict framework like ISO 27001 ITU standards, while for enterprise customers, they demand SLA-backed security guarantees for VSAT and content delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is drive us to adopt zero trust and advanced monitoring. I believe Frank emphasize most on the zero trust, which is without that you are exposed. In addition, you need to build advanced monitoring system because without visibility, you will not know even if you are attacked or you are exposed. So you have to invest on advanced monitoring tool that help in identifying at early stage any attacks or any lateral movement inside the premises.
Yeah. But I think some of the difficulty, particularly working with government customers, is that they have a set of government furnished equipment that then just connects into your equipment, and you don't have a lot of control over that. You, in most cases, you don't have any control over that. And so, you have to really, that's the demarcation point, and you have to focus on your side of that demarcation point. And you just hope that they're keeping up with their side of it, because you don't have the access or the knowledge of what is coming through that side of it. So there is a risk with these programs.
All right.
Yeah, I think there's something, sorry, just to touch on that one quickly. And this goes back to Yassine's reinforcement on the zero trust. We have to create the ecosystem at a teleport that is consciously aware of the traffic that's happening in it. So, i.e., you have a government supplied router. That router is given access to the internet. And typically we think, okay, job done. Or it's given access to a circuit. And typically we think job done, right? What we need to do is build a zero trust relationship between that router and where that traffic's supposed to go, because that router could be quote calling home and could be a third party manufacturer aspect of it. To Yassine's comment about robust monitoring, that's exactly it. Why is this router deciding to try to access or send traffic over to here? And the government customer will find value in that, because it's not only the idea of them looking at their equipment, but you isolating it and doing truly a zero trust network on it. So it's more that focus of the network management around the teleport than the physical infrastructure of the teleport, but they do combine. And yes, a teleport's a place where you're going to take in equipment that you necessarily don't have any ability to vet, but you can isolate it. So creating virtual air gaps and networks is key, I think.
Okay, and Chris, when do you rely on highly secure cloud environments like AWS or Azure, and where do you draw boundaries?
So we mainly operate on a private network. We use the cloud platforms that that they benefit from. They're scalable. I mean, you can for large data analytics, that kind of process of passing large parts of data, we'll use those. But when we have the critical functions of the teleport, command and control, link management, we try to keep that on the hardened infrastructure and keep that on site. So I guess cloud is for your more of a flexible service, but control and data assurance is more on site.
Okay, great. And no panel would be complete without talking about AI. So we're going to touch on AI briefly. Fulvio, where do you see the biggest benefits from AI or machine learning in your defensive operations?
The AI is. I saw this, that there is also a question about AI. They ask if there is the colleague asks if it's a net positive. How to say, net positive. There are both aspects. On one end, you might have AI weaponization against, in general, satellite service platforms. On the other end, you have the opportunity that AI AI offers you. So it's difficult to say if it's a net positive or a net negative, but at least for what concerns us, the major benefits that we see is in anomaly detection, especially when you have a lot of events. The AI can help you in catching misuse, fraud, or any compromised account. It helps also in our automated log correlation. And then any kind of predictive analysis, where basically you try to forecast what could likely happen in the future. So it's becoming a tool more and more powerful for correlating, from our point of view, at least the OSS telemetry level with the BSS behavioral level.
Okay, and related to AI and machine learning, what emerging technology concerns you the most as you look ahead 1 to 3 years, Fulvio?
This is again the difficult question. I think that let's say the most important, as I was saying before, is there is also an aspect of connecting your system with the threat intelligence sources. Is a little bit similar to what happens in the DPI. So basically, you have sources of threat intelligence that you cannot keep updated by yourself. So this is something which is we see it's taking some traction on the market, and by connecting to those sources, you can detect and respond to emerging AI-based threats by exploiting what is available at those threat intelligence sources. But this requires, of course, a connection between your security tools and those external threat intelligence sources. And this might be an interesting area of technology development in the next future.
Okay.
Yeah. From a teleport operator standpoint, there's two parts to it. There's the education to the staff about the different phishing and deep fakes and any of the probing of the network that goes on. But then we have to use a third party consultancy at this point to have experts that are keeping up with the technology and how these bad parties are coming after the networks. You don't have the capability as a teleport operator to have someone on staff that has that inherent capability and still be profitable, to keep yourself in that profitable area. So we look at it as a third party consultancy that we work with to do these types of processes, and we lean on people like you, like WTA, are doing these reports and other resources out there. But I think you have to go out and look for people that can help you on that side.
And this relates with the previous discussion about costs somehow, because those are additional costs to which I would also add the penetration testing that you have to how to say perform regularly.
Yeah,
I would like to add.
Go ahead, Yassine.
Yeah, for me, the key emergent technology that concerns me is the quantum computing and its impact on encryption, in addition to AI-powered spoofing of satellite signals. They are at the top concerns. Both could undermine trust in authentication and secure communication.
All right, great. We've got just a few minutes left, so we want to get up to what keeps you up at night. So, what is the single most urgent cybersecurity issue that teleport and ground operators must address in the next 12 months? Chris, we'll start with you.
I think really the AI and what Yassine had said about the quantum computing, that part of it is what's keeping us up at night, because that is something that currently I have to rely on, third party outside consultancies to assist in supporting us to identify. We have, processes in place for all of the hardened infrastructure that's coming into the facilities, but this type of AI and quantum and those types of attempted breaches by any number of actors that are out there today. It can be just malicious phishing, ransomware, all the way up to certainly state level attempts to access any part of data that's on the facilities. So that's definitely what keeps me up at night.
Frank, what keeps you up at night?
I take a view of this a little different, and my colleagues may not like this statement. There's this perception that we're in fortresses and the enemy's outside. And therefore, what we have to do is protect our walls and what have you. The reality is many major telcos have already established this. Salt Typhoon proved it, which is take the stance of we're already infected. If we're already quote infected, or we're already compromised, then what we have to do is look at our network architectures, build the monitoring capabilities, and truly implement the zero trust sort of architecture policies inside to separate out that network architecture, as opposed to taking the fortress mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are still taking the fortress mentality. They're guarding the wall when the embedded kernels are already in. AI is, the easiest question for AI is, how do I attack ABC teleport, right? Surprisingly enough, it'll tell you a pile of valuable things. We need to use AI to turn around and say, how do I protect ABC teleport? Because it'll also turn around and tell you a lot of valuable things. But the fundamental thing that I see is we talk a lot about security as if cybersecurity is a threat that's coming. Cybersecurity and compromised systems are a threat that's been here for years. And I don't think we're doing enough to deal with the present issues.
Okay. Fulvio, what keeps you up at night?
I think that both point of views are relevant and let's say valid. I think that is a bit of a mix of the two. On the one hand, it's true that the enemy sometimes is outside and tries to break in, but it's also true on the other hand that we need to look at our infrastructure as if it was already infected, let's say, or if we were already compromised. And the zero trust approach, I fully agree. Basically, that's what we do every day. We assume that never assume trust based on a network location. It always translate in never trust, always verify philosophy, which requires each user, each device, each application to be continuously authenticated, authorized before granting access to any resource, feature, capability. So the zero trust approach is fundamental, together with the segmentation which goes with it. But at the same time, there are also threats which are coming from outside, and at least from our point of view, from the position that we have in the value chain, the point of big attention for us is the API connection with third parties, and this is where we concentrate our focus, which translates for us in a zero trust approach, even in the machine to machine interactions. So it's not only zero trust for human users, but it's zero trust also for machine users when accessing functionalities within the system.
And Yassine, you get the final word. What keeps you up at night?
I think the team has mentioned most of it, but the securing legacy systems, and also so nowadays we have to stay connected, and to patch frequently means then you need to bring those patch from abroad. Sometimes, with the recent incidents that happened to stop all the system across the world because of a wrong update, and this is a systems that meant to be to protect you, but it breaks all the systems. So those are, and sometimes you are trying to do your best, but by keeping updating, but in some occasions those updates make more damage than the real attacks or vulnerabilities.
All right, great. And with that, we are out of time. I'd like to again thank my panelists for today's exciting webinar. Coming up, we have our annual workshop at PTC in January. So if you're there, Chris, I know you'll be there. And then we have Satellite in March. We'll have our annual Teleport Awards luncheon. Upcoming reports serving the software-defined satellite market of the future coming out this month very soon. And in February, new markets to watch, how executives are planning for the future.